Welcome back everyone for another NHL Would You Rather, and today's guest we have YouTuber The Sports Girl. I'm going to link all of her stuff down in the description like I always do for every collaboration video. She's one of the funniest YouTubers out there, brings a great sense of humor and talks about the Toronto Maple Leafs, Raptors, Blue Jays, and just all sports in general. So make sure you guys go check her out, and let's get right into this video.
Let me just start off by saying, how fun is this? This is seriously the best idea, so props to Nyquist because goddamn, like, this is amazing. Thank you so much for having me in this. This is like the funnest idea ever.
So first question we have, would you rather be a bottom six forward making low money on a contending team, or be a superstar on a terrible team? Now obviously a lot of people think this is an easy one, but a lot of factors really go into this, because if you're a superstar on a bad team, obviously your contract doesn't last forever, and you can decide to leave and maybe even go to a contending team or demand a trade and stuff like that. And obviously the team won't be terrible forever, but if it was just for one season, I would have to go with being a bottom six forward on a contending team, because that is what hockey's all about, is contending, and everyone wants to win. So if it was longevity, I would probably go with the superstar, but if it was just for the one season, then I would definitely choose being a bottom six forward on a contending team.
Would you rather be a bottom six forward making low money but play for a contender, or be a superstar on a bad team? Now, I did not have to think about this at all. Play for a contender. There's only one reason you want to become a hockey player is, okay, of course, your love of the game, but also because you want to win the Stanley Cup. So being a superstar on a bad team, or a team who can't get to the Stanley Cup, Ovechkin, well, that might be obsolete by the time this comes out. You've got to take the pay cut to play on a contending team like Connor McDavid. You want to win the cup. You don't want to just be this guy who gets millions of dollars, even though that doesn't sound that bad. It is bad.
So would you rather give up William Nylander or Morgan Rielly? Now I put this in especially for the Sports Girl because she is a Leafs fan, and for me, as a non-biased opinion, not a Leafs fan, I would probably have to go with William Nylander for the situation that the Maple Leafs are in, because obviously if you lose Rielly, your defense core is very, very bad, as it really is not too strong already, but you really don't want to lose Morgan Rielly, and you have a really deep crop of forwards, so I feel like you can lose William Nylander and still be a good team, but losing Morgan Rielly I think would be a more significant blow to the future and just for the organization. But he is a fantastic player, but I would have to go with rather give up Nylander.
Rather have to give up Morgan Rielly or William Nylander? I can see you obviously specified this. For me, I would 100%, sorry, but I would give up Nylander because he's a winger. Like, winger, we got a million of them, and then you got Morgan Rielly, good defenseman. You have to keep Morgan Rielly. But the good thing about that is that you would get awesome players in exchange for William Nylander, so it's kind of a win-win, except for you lose William Nylander.
Next we have, would you rather finish dead last in the NHL or finish 1 point out of a playoff spot? Now if I'm a player on a team, I want to win, and finishing dead last out of the playoffs would really suck because you wouldn't get a draft pick, and finishing dead last you would most likely get the #1 overall pick, and that has the potential to turn a franchise around. But ultimately, if I'm a player, I'd want to finish 1 point out of the playoffs, because obviously you were that close, you went down fighting, scratching, clawing. But if I were an owner or like a general manager and stuff like that, then I would certainly want to finish dead last in the NHL, because you would obviously get a very good player in the NHL entry draft.
Finish dead last in the NHL or 1 point out of a playoff spot? Been there, done that. I would like to finish dead last in the NHL. Say hello to Austin Matthews, because that is the type of player you're going to get when you go through this pain. I've also been in that situation where you're 1 point out of a playoff spot, and let me tell you, it does not feel good. I don't know, kind of being dead last kind of feels better than being 1 point out, because at least you get something.
Would you rather have Charlie McAvoy or Zach Werenski? Now, two of these guys are some of the best young defensemen in the NHL. They're going to be Norris Trophy candidates, in my opinion, battling each other for that award in a couple years. But I think I would have to go with Zach Werenski. I'm a huge fan of his game. My favorite college team, he's a Michigan guy. Charlie McAvoy is a very, very solid player, though. He really did log a lot of minutes for the Boston Bruins and really helped them out throughout the playoffs, especially to get out of the series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I think ultimately I would have to go with Zach Werenski. I think he's a fantastic defenseman with a very good polished offensive game, but he also has a solid defensive game. Now looking at Charlie McAvoy, he had one of the best plus minuses in the entire league, so both of these guys it would be fantastic to have, but just in my opinion, I would rather have Zach Werenski.
Would you rather have Charlie McAvoy or Zach Werenski? This one's a hard one because I don't like either of these guys. I would probably go with Werenski because I just have bias against Boston players, as you guys know. And we know that Zach can take a puck to the face and survive, so I think I would definitely have to go with him.
So next up we have, would you rather play in the CHL, which is like the Canadian Hockey League, which is WHL, OHL, and QMJHL, so take the junior route to the NHL, or play college hockey. For me, I would rather play college hockey. In my opinion, I think college hockey players are more polished and ready to go coming out of junior because you play against better and older and stronger guys playing in college hockey. Obviously, that doesn't apply to guys like Connor McDavid, who are just generational, fantastic talents, but I think if you're looking to get a guy like not first overall, usually the first overall guy comes out of like the CHL, but if I were to take a guy, I think I would rather play college just because obviously you're more polished, you're ready to go, you're used to playing against older players. So if it were me, I would take the college route to the NHL.
Rather play in the CHL or college? I've never played hockey at any professional level, but I have thought about this a lot, strangely, and when hockey players go to college, I almost think like they're missing out on some stuff. I would definitely go to the CHL if I had the chance, which I don't, but I would. But then again, there are so many players that come from colleges, so it's just personal preference, and I would go with the CHL.
Would you rather retire as a role player with 1 Stanley Cup, or retire with no cups but be a Hall of Famer? I would have to go with the 1 cup as a role player because that Hall of Famer would never have gotten the opportunity and had the feeling of winning a Stanley Cup, which is obviously what you want to do when you make the NHL, is compete and win a Stanley Cup. So role players, obviously, you still are sitting comfortably, you have a lot of money, and you would have won a Stanley Cup. Really, being a Hall of Famer with no cups, that's not for me. I would just want to win a Stanley Cup. But for some people, it would probably be different, but I don't know. Being a Hall of Famer with no cups, I feel like you're obviously just missing something, so I would definitely choose a role player with 1 Stanley Cup.
Would you rather retire with 1 Stanley Cup as a role player or retire with no cups but have a Hall of Fame career? You gotta go with the Stanley Cup, like I was saying before. That's the whole goal. Who wants to be in the Hall of Fame? Seriously. Would you rather be in the Hall of Fame for not getting the Stanley Cup or be on the Stanley Cup for getting the Stanley Cup? You gotta take the Stanley Cup.
Would you rather have Evgeny Kuznetsov or Mikko Rantanen? Now, Rantanen has played fantastic the past 2 years, obviously putting up over 80 points this season, but playing with Nathan MacKinnon, and obviously Kuznetsov plays with Ovechkin, so that certainly helps get you assists when you're setting up a guy with probably the best shot of all time. So honestly, this is kind of a tough one, as Kuznetsov for me has shown more so far over his career, as Rantanen really has only had 2 solid years, as opposed to Kuznetsov has been better for longer, and he's been playing very well throughout the playoffs so far. So I think I'm going to have to go with Evgeny Kuznetsov because I think he's a more well-rounded player, but either one of these guys would be fantastic to have on your team.
Would you rather have Evgeny Kuznetsov or Mikko Rantanen? Okay, this was probably the hardest questions. Yeah, this is probably one of the hardest questions that you could have given me. Ooh, I gotta think about that one. This seems to be the theme of my answers, but everything is based around the Stanley Cup, and while Rantanen is very good, I would have to go with Kuznetsov because he's on a 10-game point streak going into the Stanley Cup final. So, really.
Would you rather play for one team your entire NHL career or play for multiple teams? Now, for me, I would play for one team. Obviously, I think loyalty is a big thing for me, but obviously having a family and having to move them around and stuff to different cities and maybe even a different country and stuff like that, I think would be difficult. So I would like to play for one team, obviously, and retire with that team. I think that'd be fantastic. And obviously, as a fan, if I had a fantastic player playing for my team and he just left, I'd be very, very disappointed. So I would have to go with play for one team in my entire career.
Play for one team your whole career or multiple? I don't know. I really like just the whole idea of playing your first game with one team and your entire career and then retiring there. I don't know why that really speaks to me. Doesn't matter what sport, with baseball, with hockey, I just really like that whole idea of having just I don't know, representing one team. That's it. For instance, Tyler Bozak for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm going to have my heart broken this year if he leaves, because he's been here since his entire career. His kid was born here and everything, and if he goes to another team for just a few years and retires, I'm going to be heartbroken. He is one of my favorite players of all time, and it would just kill me.
Would you rather have Johnny Gaudreau or Artemi Panarin? Now, this is kind of a tough one, but I think I would go with Johnny Gaudreau. He's younger than Panarin, but Panarin did really play well in the one playoff series that he had this season against the Capitals. Obviously, with that overtime winner in Washington and stuff like that, he was just playing fantastic, and he's putting up great numbers now that he's the #1 option in Columbus. But Johnny Gaudreau is one of the most talented offensive guys in the NHL, so I think he's going to be one of the best players in the league for many more years to come and be a guy that could maybe put up around 90 to 95 points. So for me, if I was starting out a franchise, I would probably have to choose Johnny Gaudreau to have on my team.
Have Johnny Hockey or the Bread Man. Now, let's get into this a bit. I asked my sister this, and she said she would pick Panarin based off his size, because compared to Johnny Gaudreau, Gaudreau's like a feather. I would have to disagree. I think that small guys are kind of paving their way in hockey. Mitch Marner, for instance, they got that skill, and they don't really have to hit. They don't really have to be that big if they can be small enough to avoid hits.
Last question, would you rather fight John Scott or get licked by Brad Marchand? I would rather fight John Scott, because just the fact of Brad Marchand licking me just gives me the EBGBs. I hate Brad Marchand because of what he did. I think that's just not a good look on the game of hockey. Obviously, fighting John Scott, you got a fighter's chance. If you got two hands, you obviously have a chance, but getting licked by Brad Marchand, I don't know. I just feel like that'd be a thing I wouldn't be able to rebound from.
Last one, would you rather fight John Scott or get licked by Brad Marchand? Again, very close to my heart, this one, because I've had a player on the team that I like get licked by Brad Marchand, and I have been absolutely appalled by it. And I also love John Scott, so let's think about this for a second. Okay, so on one hand, you have a fight with John Scott where you're pretty much guaranteed to be knocked out. And then on the other hand, you have Brad Marchand licking you. I don't know what kind of diseases he carries, and I know the lick is not going to be on the cheek or here, it's going to be in your mouth, right? So basically getting kissed by him, French kissed. So with those facts, I would probably go with fighting John Scott, only because I can either do one of two things. I can hold on to him for dear life so that he can't pry me off him, can't get any shots in my head or anything like that, so we're safe there. Or if he's not angry, if it's just one of those fights where we're both waiting for the face-off and we're like, hey, you want to drop the gloves, then maybe I'll pretend to be dead, so kind of fall, go into a ball, and hope that he lays off. Worst case, you get a few scars, but you get a really cool story. I just don't think I'm willing to risk getting a disease from Brad Marchand, you know? You don't really know where rats go and what they eat and what they do, so I kind of wouldn't touch that. Thanks again for having me. Those were really super fun questions, and this whole idea, you're just a genius. This is the best. I know O Nyquist is doing a series, so you guys should really stay on this. Make sure you subscribe to him, because I personally cannot wait to see who he collabs with next and what answers they have, because these are they're the best. They're questions that you don't think about, but for some reason you have a really strong opinion about. Seriously, next time play along with this and you will find that you for some reason have such strong opinions about these. And I guess that's it for me. Thank you again for having me, and I'll see you guys later.
So that wraps up the second edition of NHL Would You Rather. Make sure to drop down in the comment section any other NHL YouTubers that you guys would want me to bring on to do this with, so I'll try to do that. And thanks again for coming on to the Sports Girl. I'll link all of her stuff down in the description below. I'm sure you guys could have seen how funny and how awesome of a person she is just throughout this video, so make sure you guys check her out. I'll link all of her stuff down in the description. And yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please make sure you drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.